Good morning, New Brunswick, and welcome to the New Brunswick Today show for Tuesday, September 20th. I'm Charlie Cradaville. Thanks for starting your morning with us. We're proud to be coming at you live today on our Facebook page. We'll be interviewing New Jersey's top transparency guru today, John Paff, so stick around for that. Now, the great thing about our show is you can listen in the background while you're reading some of the excellent articles available on newbrunswicktoday.com. Since our last show, we've published nearly a dozen new articles, plus a couple of videos too, and we'll be playing one of those videos, my interaction with a Rutgers spokesperson, plus another Rutgers video you won't want to miss later in the program. Plus, we're going to give you an inside look at what you can expect to see on our website in the near future. But first, the weather. It is officially fall here in the Hub City, but we are still looking at a high of 84 degrees today with cloudy skies and light winds. We've also got a couple traffic advisories for you this morning. Bayard Street, right behind me, is going to be closed between Joyce Kilmer Avenue and Connector Way until 3 p.m. and the on-street parking will be suspended during that time. Wilcox Road in Rutgers Village is going to be closed until 4 p.m. today. And like I said, we'll be interviewing a really special guest today. So to all of you watching on Facebook Live, please do us a favor, share this video with your friends right now. Now, all of you out there watching on the Facebook page, you can also comment on this video with your questions or your feedback, as well as our Twitter account. That's at @NB_today, and we'll actually respond if you have anything to add or share. The video is available on our Facebook page right now, but it's also going to be available later today on our YouTube channel, as well as the newbrunswicktoday.com website, so you can share it there as well. Our top story today is a very interesting one. Our very own Carlos Ramirez has the story on school buses and the mystery of why students are being denied transportation. Now, the question is, how far should kids have to walk to school before they get offered a free ride in one of the district's school buses? Hundreds of school buses in this district. Well, if you're like me, you were probably surprised to find out that elementary and middle school students in New Jersey are only guaranteed bus service if they live 2 miles or more away from their school. That means a lot of New Jersey students have to traverse dangerous intersections and sometimes dangerous neighborhoods, even in bad weather and sometimes without the aid of crossing guards. But in New Brunswick, for some unknown reason, the school district has traditionally gone above and beyond the state requirements, and even though it's written in its policies otherwise, it's actually offered busing to students who live more than 1 mile away in the case of the city's middle school. It seems like a little more reasonable threshold there. That is until this year. The change caught many parents off guard, and they are concerned about how their kids will be able to get to school once it's colder and gets dark earlier and when the sidewalks are icy or wet. Now, as you can see on this map, when it comes to getting to the city's middle school, hundreds, if not thousands of students living in the heart of the city are now being denied buses, and the community is not happy about this change. Two local groups, Unity Square and Esperanza Neighborhood Project, are planning to be at the meeting tonight, according to our sources. Now, 34% of New Brunswick kids between ages 10 and 14 live in areas of those two neighborhood projects, and they're going to be affected by the bus change. 34% of the kids living in those neighborhoods. Now, it's anticipated that parents are going to come out in force to this evening's Board of Education meeting. That meeting is going to be set for 7 p.m. tonight at New Brunswick High School on Somerset Street. But some folks are actually planning to get together a little earlier at War Memorial Park. That's at the corner of French and Jersey Avenue. It's known to locals as Parque Oaxaca. They're planning to meet there at 5:50 p.m. and then march up Route 27 to the high school. I actually just ran into Board of Education attorney George Hendricks out there on the street. He said he didn't know that there was any concern over the buses or that there were any changes. Well, after tonight's meeting, I think they're going to realize that there's at least some upset folks out there. So stay tuned to New Brunswick Today as we're going to follow this story as it develops. But for now, check out Carlos Ramirez's excellent article. It's our top story today on the New Brunswick Today website. Now, last week, we brought you the story of Rutgers University's prolonged power outages and the embarrassing debacle that ensued when they had to basically evacuate an entire campus and put the students in makeshift shelters, crowding them into athletics facilities. Now, we also brought you the exclusive footage of me getting kicked out of facilities on the Livingston campus. The Livingston Rec Center that was a temporary shelter there. And we noticed something interesting in that video. In the video, we noticed that there's actually security cameras rolling in that facility, or it looks like there's security cameras equipped in that facility. So we thought it was interesting that Rutgers was taking issue with us trying to document the conditions the students were being subjected to, some accusing us of violating the students' privacy, at the same time that it was sticking up for the rights of those students. We wanted to see if Rutgers was quietly videotaping students the whole time. So we actually spotted, just a block away from our downtown studio here, Rutgers spokesperson E.J. Miranda walking, and we took the chance to ask him a lot of questions that we've had about the school, and the conversation got a little tense. He even told me that we shouldn't be recording him without his permission, without even a hint of irony. So here's that exchange. Take a look. Hey EJ, how are you?
Okay.
Can you tell me, did the university have security cameras rolling in those temporary shelters?
You'd have to ask. Send me a question.
Who should I ask?
You can ask me.
Ask you? Okay. I mean, I've done that, so can you get back to me?
I'll find out.
All right. You never got back to me about the kid that fell off the yard.
I didn't find out.
Is there a reason you didn't get back to me? I thought you said you would.
Excuse me, Trump. Are you taping me now?
Yes, I'm recording.
Please don't do that without asking me first.
I mean, you're a public official. We're here out in public. I'm a journalist. It's safe to assume I'm going to report your actions and what you say. How about the Coca-Cola contract? Has Rutgers signed the Coca-Cola contract yet? And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today Show. That was me and Rutgers spokesperson E.J. Miranda having a bit of a tense discussion there. You heard at the end, I asked him about the Coca-Cola contract. Well, yeah, Rutgers switched this summer from being an exclusive Pepsi school and getting money from Pepsi to have that exclusivity to being a Coca-Cola school, and that was a pretty popular story for us. You can check out Joya Kennedy's excellent work on NewBrunswickToday.com. As you heard there, no answer to the question of when will Rutgers sign the Coca-Cola contract. That's, of course, cause for concern because there's millions of dollars on the line, and Rutgers yet again hasn't put anything in writing with this major corporation they're doing business with. So we're going to follow that story some more, but first we have a very interesting video to show you. I'm joined by New Brunswick Today's newest reporter, Jennifer Goldberg. Jennifer, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So you are a current student, and you went to the football game this weekend?
Yes, on Saturday.
Big win.
Yeah.
Big win. Did you actually go to the game, or you just went to the pregame?
I just went to the
pregame. So tell us, what is the Alley? This is a new tailgate party for students only?
Yes. So it's actually a student tailgate. It's located across the street from Wordland Recreation Center, and it's the gravel lot next to it. And basically all students are allowed to join. In order to get a parking pass, you need to be a student organization, and you can request that actually outside of Brower. And so basically there was a bunch of fraternities there, and it was a huge tailgate with alcohol, and the athletic director showed up.
Yes, so Rutgers has a new athletic director. He's been in office now for part of this year, Patrick Hobbs, and you found some very interesting video of Athletic Director Hobbs during his remarks to the crowd. Tell people, what did you see?
So well, he came onto stage and he greeted everyone and wanted, you know, everyone to bring some energy to the football game. I guess that was his intention. And he told everyone to respect the RUPD. The crowd had booed, but then he got people back on track, and he drank a beer on stage. And
so he was peer pressured into drinking a beer. You can watch the video now.
Yeah.
At first he says he's not going to do it, but then he ends up drinking a beer. Take a look. This is Athletic Director Patrick Hobbs addressing the crowd at the Alley.
No, I can't drink that right now. All right?
So that was Athletic Director Patrick Hobbs at the recent football game. Big win for Rutgers, but remains to be seen what's going to come of this this footage and this party. We tried to check. It's actually seems like it's legal to be drinking in public in Piscataway. If this was New Brunswick, he'd be violating a city ordinance, and that would be something he could be issued a summons for. But as far as we can tell, what he did was legal. What do you think about it, though? What do you think about his behavior there, and what do you think about this event at the Alley?
I think it's going to somehow, maybe something bad could happen from it. It's an environment where there's a lot of alcohol. It's closed quarter. It's like pretty tight packed. There was a lot of people. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we saw some of your footage. It was hundreds of people crowded in real tight, right?
Yeah, anyone really, any student is allowed to go. When I walked in, there was really no checking to see if I was actually a student. There was, RUSA had actually been giving out waters to keep people hydrated, and sunglasses, so I guess they were looking out for people there, but...
Well, good. That's what the student government should do. But do you think this is how the athletic director should, handle himself in public, drinking in front of the group? I think it's interesting. He's, not what I expected. It's a little unusual, right?
Yeah. I think he's trying to win over the student population, and make some kind of rah-rah environment, but it could go really south.
Yeah, and Rutgers Athletics has a unfortunate track record of making things worse, right? Yeah. So the Alley is open every football game, right? Every home game they have a big event there, and you too can share a beer with Athletic Director Patrick Hobbs at the next football game. Thank you, Jennifer Goldberg, for joining us. We're going to show you that video just one more time, and we'll be back with John Path after this.
No, I can't drink that right now. All right? I am of age, right? If they card me, I'm okay. All right? Go are you?
And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today show. I'm Charlie Cradaville, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be joined by a real New Jersey legend. John Path is the treasurer of the New Jersey Foundation for Open Government. He's also a legendary activist, an Oprah requester, who runs several blogs that shine a light on some of the things going on in our state. And he's actually in New Jersey today to be able to speak to the group at an event you can read about on our website. The New Jersey Foundation for Open Government is having a free event to educate people about the public records laws and the public meetings laws in this state. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Charlie.
So, tell people, just to start out with, how did you get into all this? How did you end up becoming a transparency activist? And
Well, I'm a libertarian. and I'm not a big fan of the wonders of government. And what I discovered early on in doing this is that there's two ways people find out basically about what government does. What government tells them that it does. And they'll issue press releases. They'll issue all kinds of things. They'll do good things.
Right.
And then you have to dig for the information that the government doesn't want you to know about. So I'm not a big believer in government. I think a lot of people would question government more if they had a true picture of what it actually did. So my thought is that if I can find out exactly the stuff that the government doesn't want you to know about, and I'm talking local government, federal government, whatever, that balanced against the press releases they issue will give people a better picture of what this thing called government does. And then people can make up their own minds as to whether this is a good thing they want more of or this is a bad thing they would like to eliminate. And hopefully they'll see it from a libertarian perspective and they'll want less of it.
Right. So you have your reasons for doing this, but you don't really seem to have any particular axe to grind with any one part of it.
I either have an axe to grind with no one or with everyone, one or the other. I'm not really sure. I mean, it could be a personality disorder. I don't know. But I think that there is a need for people to get the true story. And there's so much stuff that is technically public, but it's practically obscure. Because no one knows what to ask for, no one knows where it is, and the very people who do know what to ask for and where it is are in a position where they will face reprisals if they disclose it. So I like to go to, and I do this from Bergen to Cape May to Salem to Sussex. It's not partisan at all. I go to places where there are government agencies that aren't used to being looked at, and I get the information. Sometimes people call me from inside of the organizations and tell me what I like to call,
say,
what are the bodies
you should look for this.
You should ask for the police report number 15-093. I'm not going to tell you why, but you really want to see this. And that's, like, I had a couple people tell me there was something about a Scotch Plains police chief just got busted in South Plainfield.
Yeah.
People from the inside, some people were telling me that this was going on. I assumed it from the inside. They were anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage that. Anyone can contact me. They can make up a hush mail account, and I mean, I would never out them, but they can send me what they know, and I will try to look into it as time permits.
And so basically, tell people a little bit about the process of how do you look into it. You take advantage of a law that's on the books in New Jersey, a pretty powerful law that entitles citizens to get access to some of the same records that the government officials have, like you said, police reports, but also settlement agreements that are done to make lawsuits go away.
Well, there's two main ones. Well, you have the Open Public Meetings Act, which I can talk about some, but you have the Open Public Records Act and the Common Law Right of Access. Those are the ways that those are the legal mechanisms through which you can get records in New Jersey. And you make a request to a government agency. You would go to the whatever town council, fire districts, they're fun. You can go to a fire district, Egg Harbor Township number 3 fire district, and you can ask them, we want to see your meeting minutes, we want to see whatever it is. You just have to identify a specific record of reasonable clarity. You can ask for emails that relate to government business among and between the government officials. And one of the things, you mentioned settlement agreements, one of the things I really like to look for are settlement agreements. What happens is, like right now was 2016. Lawsuits that were filed generally in 2014 are being settled in 2016. It takes about 2 years for them to go through the cycle. Maybe 95% of them are settled, maybe less than 5% go to trial. And the event that caused the lawsuit to be filed, the accident, the police, excessive force, the whatever it was, usually occurred about 2 years prior to the lawsuit's filing. So you got 2012, the event occurs, 2014, the lawsuit is filed, 2016, the lawsuit resolves. So the problem is there's not many journalists, especially today with journalists getting laid off and papers closing, they have the attention span to follow an incident from 2012 to 2016. For some reason, this is where the personality disorder probably comes in, I track these lawsuits, keep them in a spreadsheet, and I am constantly checking for the resolution of these lawsuits. I have hundreds of them that I check constantly.
Wow.
And when they resolve, and if they resolve by settlement, I send a OPA request to the agency or sometimes to the Joint Insurance Fund that covers the agency, asking for a copy of the settlement agreement. And more often than not, when I finally get the settlement agreement, it will say that there's a press embargo or a confidentiality clause placed within the settlement agreement.
So you're not allowed to talk about this.
They're not allowed to talk about
right.
it. Now, prior to 2009, I wasn't allowed, no one was allowed to get a settlement agreements because the argument was, well, there's a confidentiality clause in it, you can't have it. But the courts found, in Asbury Park Press was one plaintiff, I was the other one, Path versus Monmouth County, that actually the settlement agreements, that those confidentiality clauses bind only the public, the parties to the lawsuit, not the general public.
Right. It doesn't apply to Oprah. You can still get the
You can still get the settlement agreement.
And it says right in there, you know, how much money.
It says exactly how much money it is.
Makes the case go.
I got one. I just put one up last night. It was a fairly popular case in Cape May. An openly gay officer said he was harassed out of the fire department by the city of Cape May. It was $369,000 is what they paid this guy.
Right, to make it go away.
To make it, to settle it. And now, of course, every settlement agreement says there's no proof of wrongdoing by virtue of this settlement. There is, you know, they say that nothing actually happened. And that's one of the problems I want to highlight is that when you pay $369,000 out, I think it's fair to draw some sort of an inference as to the amount of how right the plaintiff was and how wrong.
Right, did they have a case or not? Sounds like
because insurance companies typically don't pay out, you know, a better part of $500,000 when there's no wrongdoing or no anything. And if the guy gets paid $5,000, I publish those too. I mean, to me, that signals to the public that this was a nuisance lawsuit, and the people against whom he complained really did little or nothing wrong. They just paid it off as a financial decision. But people need that information to evaluate the efficacy of their government, the government's allegedly working for them. And if you don't have that information, you're completely in the dark. And what irks me is the governments continue to put these confidentiality clauses in there because they don't want they want to try to they're actually actively trying to suppress the information about where the public's tax dollars are going. And to me, that's reprehensible. I would like it if they actually put it on their meeting agenda. Well, we set a lawsuit for $369,000, but they're actively trying to suppress information.
Now, so we had Walter Lewis, the president of the NJ5, on the show last week, and he told us that not only are these confidentiality agreements in there, but it's actually the whole MO is to keep the public from getting it. Let's go back to square one. How do you start? Can you just ask for all the settlement agreements from a government?
Well, you could. What I do is I search the government, the indices of the New Jersey Superior Court and the Federal District Court. But you could actually say, suppose you were interested in Milltown, just use them as an example, or South River, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
And you could say, you could write an Oprah request. I would write it exactly as follows. Please provide me the following records under both the Open Public Records Act and the Common Law Right to Know. Please email them to me via, with my email address. You don't have to fill out any forms. You don't have to do that. Just put Oprah request in the subject line and send it to the municipal clerk. For every active lawsuit in which the borough of South River or any of its agents or employees were sued in either New Jersey Superior Court or Federal District Court, or any lawsuits that settled within the last 6 months, please provide 1, the most recently amended complaint filed in civil court, or the original complaint if no amendment was filed. 2, any settlement agreement or release that resolved the lawsuit. Now that, I believe, is an appropriate Oprah request. They're not going to like it, but they will have to provide you with the complaints and the settlement agreement.
So the way the Oprah law works, for those who haven't filed a request before, it's as simple as writing that in an email to the municipal clerk
or the business administrator of the school boards, because they get sued too.
Sure, that's a good point. And so yes, that's what I wanted to get to here, is a lot of people think of Oprah as just a way to get documents out of town hall or city hall, but every government agency in the state of New Jersey is bound by the Oprah law. So that means things like you said, fire districts, boards of education.
Suing authorities.
You exposed the civil settlement with Eric Murdoch, the whistleblower who exposed the basketball coach. And he was paid $300,000 to make that lawsuit go away. So Rutgers is a great example. What other types of government entities should people be thinking about looking into with the Oprah law?
Well, just any ones that there are. I mean, it could be parking authorities, sewerage authorities, housing authorities, whatever. And the pension boards, the public service, the PERS and the PFRS, both of them have boards of commissioners or whatever they call them that actually decide things. They have meeting minutes. They are an agency subject to public records. Joint insurance funds. And that's one thing I wanted to touch on, is that people say, I mean, I don't believe, some of the towns around here are part of a joint insurance fund, which is basically a bunch of towns getting together and they all hire a professional manager and they all bond together and they pay, each of them pay everyone's claim. They spread the risk out. So when someone says, oh, well, you know, that $300,000 really doesn't matter because it's just taxpayer. It's not taxpayers' money. We only paid the $20,000 deductible or whatever. Just the insurance can be paid the other $200,000.
They say, oh yeah, it's covered by insurance.
Yeah.
But
well, if it's
what that means is even more taxpayers
if it's a joint insurance fund, if you got 30 towns in your JIP, that means all of them paid up. So the people in this town are paying for theirs, but it's all taxpayers' money because the joint insurance fund gets no money except from taxing entities. Premiums they pay into it.
Yeah, it was interesting. NJ.com, Brian Amaral had some interesting coverage of how one of the GIFs was spending their money on a lot of lavish things. So that's a great place to look. Also, I think like NJ Transit. People love to complain about NJ Transit. Well, they are subject to the Oprah law.
They absolutely are.
You can request these types of documents. I think it's also important to note. The Oprah law doesn't just cover pieces of paper, documents. There's other things that
it covers electronic. It covers emails. It doesn't cover email logs now, according to the appellate division. Right. That's before the Supreme Court. And that's the other thing. There's a constant. People ask me, "Is this?" You don't know. Is this available under Oprah? Well, some of the stuff I can say yes. Some of it I can say no. A lot of times it's maybe.
Sometimes it's a gray area.
It's a gray area, and the sands and the line keeps shifting. Like we seem like right now we're in a trend where we're winning on some things, but we're losing. I'm looking from the public activist point of view in police records and law enforcement.
Right. It seems like it's been rolled back very badly. I remember just a few years ago, I could go to New Brunswick and get whatever police videos I wanted, or any town, police videos were fair game. But now, not so much.
Not so much. I have one where I wanted the appellate level, when the Ocean County prosecutor is going to the Supreme Court of New Jersey. And the issue is a video recording of I believe it was a Barnegat police officer or a Tuckerton police officer. It was one of the two. He was arrested, the officer was. He sicked his police dog on a female motorist who I guess ran away from him and whatever. And he actually, for no apparent reason, as far as we understand, just decided to say, put the dog on her.
Right.
Now I have that on video. Now they have it on video, and I want that video. And they say, well, he's going to try to do it to inflame the public. Probably he's going to put it online. And I say, I absolutely am going to put it online as soon as I get it. I mean, I'll break my arm getting to the keyboard so I can put it up there because people need to see that.
Absolutely.
Because and when it gets to the point where police can do stuff, I mean, we give police a lot of authority. I mean, they have guns. They can shoot you, and they do, and things. You have to make sure that these processes are working. And right now, there's a lot of people with some serious trust issues with the police. I mean, they see something on a video and they're told a different story. It's critically important that the people, the civilians, are in an oversight position over their police. Oh, I thought that was. I thought maybe that was the cops at the door. Now, but I think it's not anti-police. It's not that. It's just that people have to. Every government official has to be held accountable to the people. The people are allegedly, at least, the sovereign, and they need to be able to monitor what their servants are doing. And then if you don't have open records and you don't have open meetings, the question of whether or not the government is in charge of you or whether you are in charge of the government employee, that line begins to get blurred.
Right, and so tonight you're going to be educating people about this law and the public meetings law, which we can get to in a moment, at the Knights of Columbus in Perth Amboy. It's at 228 High Street. And not only will you be there, but also Walter, the Vice President of NJ5, will be there. And you guys are going to lead a discussion.
We're going to have a discussion. There's going to be a lot of Q&A. That's what we love. We love Q&A. Ask us questions. Come out, 7 o'clock, be there. Ask us any questions, whatever they are. We'll be happy to answer to the best of our ability.
And not only do you get these documents or get these towns to comply with the law, but you kind of share your work with the world through several blogs that you have. So one of them, NJ Civil Settlements. You can go to njcivilsettlements.blogspot.com. You can just read lawsuit after lawsuit, how it got settled.
And I have like 6 of them backed up in my inbox. And it just, you have to see, there's so many of them. There's just so many. And they're all being settled. And and sometimes if you look into the settlement, if you look into the blog, you'll find that some of the same police officers or same public employees they're repeat people. They have like 2 $100,000 or 3 $100,000 settlements where they were the person against whom the lawsuit was filed. And you sort of have to wonder, I mean, I think the other piece of that comes in is like, where is the disciplinary action, if any, taken? I mean, is there really an internal affairs thing that gets, because that's all super secret. You can't see any of that. You're supposed to just take their word for it that we investigated ourselves and we found no wrongdoing. I mean, that's essentially, we're not telling you even if we found any wrongdoing.
Right.
We're not telling you anything. And I think that when you start getting into it, you start to learn how much you're not allowed to know under these, I believe, made-up reasons, like, well, we have to protect the integrity of the internal affairs process because if we tell anybody...
No one for its integrity.
And I go, I don't see it. I think that the public has to know. I'm not even as worried about whether, but anecdotally, I can say this way, that I get calls, police officials call me.
Sure.
And they tell me stuff, usually the ones that are filing lawsuits. The internal affairs process, and I've seen this in 4 or 5 towns, is one where the chief uses the internal affairs to go after the guys who don't back him.
Right, it's used as a
weapon.
weapon.
If he ties his shoes incorrectly, he's got a complaint against, so they harass the heck out of him with this and everything. The officers who actually go along with the process, and they go along with what the chief says, they do his bidding, they do what they're supposed to do, they can get away with murder. It's never. So the secrecy of the system essentially enables that an illegitimate police officer, an illegitimate police official, a higher up in the brass, to actually use that as his own personal, way of getting at the people who he doesn't like. And that's really unfortunate. And that's why the answer to all these things is transparency. There should be some way for people to be able to test to see whether this process is really serving the people. And there is no way. You're simply told it is working perfectly. I've looked at it, and I can assure you, even though I can't give you any details, that it is fine. And that's what you see. But then I see things where the reports that are supposed to be sent to the county prosecutor periodically, they don't get filed for years at a time. City of Trenton wasn't even filing anything for years, and the Mercer County prosecutor isn't even saying, well, where are the reports, Trenton? Like, what's going on? So
right.
you see that
and you don't even live in Mercer.
I live in Mercer.
You're the one. You're the one who's bringing these issues to light, bringing it to their attention.
So,
they're not even following the limited.
But that should
rules
be concerning to people. I mean, people like to think that, if they missed the report, like the 10th day that after the Trenton police didn't send their report into their internal affairs for the last quarter, the Mercer prosecutors are going to be on the phone to them saying, Trenton, what's going on? But there's just, that's why, and as a libertarian, it's like there's just this lethargy and they're so mediocre and they're so, that's the way the government is. That's what government is. It's just, and and there's no snap and rigor. There's no, it just doesn't work. When it's government agencies enforcing stuff against other government people, there just seems to be everybody gets a pass.
A lot of status quo.
Sometimes, and I know this sounds like, sometimes I think that the whole purpose of the thing is to extract as much money out of the private sector as possible and hold everybody in the private sector to 100% compliance. But the people in the public sector just seem to get a pass. And I think that's what's aggravating. I think that's what at the bottom of a lot of the political discourse right now is people just don't like that. And I want to, at least, I can't fix it. Okay, Charlie, I wish I could fix it, but at least I want people to understand that there's a lot of people out there that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but there's an awful lot of them out there that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there's statute to say you're supposed to do A, and they just don't do it. And there's nobody anywhere in Trenton that's going to say, we have to do it. The burden's on the guy like me and you to go actually file a lawsuit to force them to do the things that they're supposed to do.
And it's amazing how powerful just filing that Oprah request can be. When you file, like you were reading our story about, lead in the water, it's as simple as filing the Oprah request to ask for the testing results, and then all of a sudden
that's a huge thing. And I
Yeah.
found one in Sparta where a guy said that they were telling him to fix the reports.
Cook in the books,
That's outrageous, because now we're talking, this isn't just a little thing, we're talking about people's health here.
Right, the integrity of the drinking water.
And these are the kinds of things, like protecting the public is one of the core things that governments are supposed to be doing, and if they're falling down on that, and worse, actually subverting scientific evidence to show that things, to try to make it appear that things don't exist that do, that's a horrible thing, and people should rightfully be outraged. So, I drive through these towns, and like, especially in South Jersey, and I'll tell you, I grew up in Cumberland County.
Okay.
Those towns, people think, when you drive them, they're so beautiful, they're so quaint, they're so nice. Oh my God, is there stuff going on there? I mean, because I know, because I look at it.
Right, right.
But, so, despite what you think.
More to the story.
There's more to the story. You have to start going to the meetings, you have to start asking the hard questions, you have to start making the requests for the lawsuits, and see what's actually underneath the shiny veneer that you see.
Right.
Well, some towns don't even have a shiny veneer. But I'm saying that to the extent that they do, look underneath them, and even if it turns out that your town, and there are towns that actually run very well, there's some police departments that run very well, and the chief is the most honest guy in the world. And I'm not trying to be negative about all of it, but you have to be able to determine, the only way that you can determine what kind of town you live in and what kind of school board serves you is to start asking for the records and start going to the meetings.
Right on. They're not going to advertise it if things
They're not going to. Very rarely do I see a press release go out of like the county prosecutor's office saying that the police department in town X just paid out a $400,000 settlement. That doesn't happen.
So NJ-FOG is a great organization. You guys are basically the countervailing force, one of the main countervailing forces against this type of secrecy and to try to shine a light on government. NJ-FOG has a website, njfog.org.
NJ-FOG.org.
And they have public meetings that anybody can come to and learn more. And tonight is really
one
special
of our feature meetings, and we try to hold these at least twice or 3 times a year.
Great.
We'd like to be able to do them more because we think that our best time, our time that is best spent is not my time that is best spent not making more open requests to Town X. It's talking to the people that live in Town X and teaching them how to do, fishermen and the fish, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So it works out that way and it's better. So we encourage people to come and ask questions and to try to get involved and to make a few practice open requests. Just try it and then see how it works and get your bearings and and learn more about what's going on around you.
Surely. So another cool thing about your organization is you actually sometimes take the fight into the court.
Oh, yeah.
You have now an affirmative litigation program where you're.
This is kind of like, I feel like I'm the school teacher that stands up in the front of the room with a pointer, and back in the day. But I mean what we do is we send letters out to all the municipalities and the school boards of a given county, and we say, look, we sued the Island Heights Board of Education.
Yes,
right?
I heard about that.
We got a judgment. This is what the judge said they had to do. We're pretty sure that if we were to sue you and you were doing the same thing they were doing, the same judge is going to tell you to do the same thing. So why don't we save ourselves all a lot of time? Would you just start doing it at least as good as the judge told them to do it?
Right. And what is it that you're actually asking?
Well, we're asking the things that are see, the record keeping the records are not a big problem because there's the Open Public Records Act allows attorney's fees to get paid. It actually requires attorney's fees to get paid by the government to the successful lawsuit plaintiff. Open Public Meetings Act, not so much. There is no real effective enforcement mechanism because there's no attorney's fees. So if you sue your town for under the Open Public Meetings Act, you pay your fees and they pay theirs. So not many people are going to pay $3,000 to make sure the town's keeping the meeting minutes right. So we do like a compliance check. And it will say one of the things we run into mostly are executive session resolutions. When they go into non-public session.
Secret session.
They close the doors. They close down. Now they're supposed to tell you why they're going in there. And what they're supposed to do is, we got this settlement offer in the lawsuit from Smith versus the borough, and we got to discuss it and see what we're going to do. And that's cool because they have to do that in secret because they can't if the public knows about it, then the plaintiff knows about it, and he gains an advantage. But what they'll do is they won't say that. They'll say, we're going to go in for litigation, potential litigation, personal matters, legal matters, and blah, 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 blah. And they use the same boilerplate language for so the public doesn't really get any real information on the issues that they're going to talk about. That's one. Number two is they're supposed to keep reasonably comprehensible minutes of their executive session meetings, so when it's all over and done with, the public is able to get the meeting minutes and look at it and see this
after the case is settled, they have to have notes on what they discussed in private.
I've seen meeting minutes boiled down, and this is Spotswood Board of Education, these guys.
Okay, right
Meeting
here in
minutes,
Middlesex
right here in River City. You got Spotswood Board of Education. Their meeting minutes literally say, I mean, we're talking a 90-minute meeting is legal issues were discussed, period.
That's the whole.
That's it. Okay?
So you guys actually brought a lawsuit.
Oh, yeah. So we went to them. You can't do this. I mean, would you please? And they say their lawyer comes like, yeah, we're going to do it. We know. And so then finally they just don't do it. It's like, we're not going to do it until you sue us. It's essentially what they're saying. And I'm like thinking, why does it have to be this way? Is this the board members or just want to keep this secret? The electeds? Maybe the board members don't even know about it. And they're just going by what the business administrator is telling them. I don't know. All we know is that the lawsuit is really the only thing you can do to focus these guys' attention. You can send them letters, and the lawsuit's essentially just a letter, except it has a $300 check attached to it. You send it to court, and their failure to respond works in their disfavor. Right. They have to respond to a lawsuit. The letters that I've seen, you just mail them. I'm going to go to the Attorney General and write them a letter. Good luck. It's not going to do anything. A lot of these agencies don't respond to communication. Some do, but a lot of them don't. You have to file the lawsuit. That gets their attention. It'll haul in front of Judge Francis here across the street, and hopefully we're going to get a ruling that's going to say those minutes are not compliant. You've got to do this from now on. I'm issuing an injunction that from now on out you've got to have reasonable comprehensibility and meeting the following standard, and that will then we'll start to work on the surrounding towns and try to bring them up to the same level of compliance. But unfortunately, you would think that somebody in Trenton would be doing this already.
Right.
You would think
the local governments.
No, it's us, man. We're it.
It is.
It's it. I don't know anybody else doing this stuff, and we pass statutes, but there's nobody that has a vested interest in actually changing the status quo. And the status quo is to bring it down to the lowest common denominator.
Right.
And that's essentially what happens.
Well, John Paff is the treasurer of the New Jersey Foundation for Open Government. You can see him tonight in Perth Amboy at the Knights of Columbus, where NJ Fogg is doing a free training. You can learn how to file an OPA request. You can get your questions answered, and then file those OPA requests. And join me and John in fighting for transparency here in New Jersey. Great event, great organization. Please keep up the good work and join us again real soon, John.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. That event is 7 p.m. tonight in Perth Amboy. 228 High Street is the Knights of Columbus. I will be at the New Brunswick Board of Education tonight. That meeting also at 7 at New Brunswick High School. And we have another show for you this Thursday. So thanks for joining us today. We'll be back on Thursday. Have a good one.